In this channel, we share news about current happenings around the globe. If this is the first time you're coming across our video, please like and share. Also, subscribe to this channel, click on the notification bell so that anytime we post a video, you are going to be notified.
They came from Africa, but the year and situation isn't exact. Some researchers say they arrived on slave boats that shipwrecked in the Caribbean in the 1600s. Others say they came to the Americas as early as the 1300s. Either way, a group of Africans made their home on the island of St. Vincent, where they mixed with the native people. The new people became the Garifuna. St. Vincent was a battleground in the 17th and 18th centuries. The natives, British, French, and Dutch all had claims on the island. In 1763, the Europeans signed a treaty that gave St. Vincent to the British Empire, but it didn't guarantee control of the island. British forces battled the Garifuna for decades until 1797, when the battered Garifuna finally surrendered. The British then exiled the defeated nation to the island of Roatan. It wasn't long before unsustainable conditions there forced the outcasts to relocate. The coasts of Honduras, Belize, Guatemala, and Nicaragua became the new home for the people. There are now an estimated 300,000 Garifuna in Central America and another 100,000 in the United States.
The Garifuna people always look to the Caribbean Sea. It's where their culture began. They perform this ritual every November, remembering how their West African ancestors arrived in the Americas more than 2 centuries ago. A shipwreck led them to freedom on the Caribbean island of St. Vincent. There, they intermarried with indigenous people, and the Garifuna culture was born. But it was a painful birth. Cast out from the island by the British, they were a people without a home, until one day, they finally arrived here. The annual Landing Day ceremony kicks off days of celebration of Garifuna heritage. It's a unique hybrid culture into every part of life. Like religion, at this Catholic Mass held in the Garifuna language. Garifuna families still prepare their staple cassava bread in the same way their ancestors did centuries ago. But it's through music that Garifuna culture really shines. Based on the drum, Garifuna traditional music and dance is a source of great pride here in Dangriga, especially around the time of the November celebrations. However, all of this, many fear, is under threat. About 600,000 Garifuna people now live in Central America, mostly on the Caribbean coasts of Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras. They once lived from farming and fishing. Few speak the Garifuna tongue, leading many to fear the culture could soon die out altogether. But in Dangriga, there are a handful of people who say they'll never let that happen. One of them is Adrian Doc Martinez, among the most famous living composers and singers of Garifuna music. At the school where he teaches math and music, his students are learning to sing in the Garifuna language, and he uses every opportunity he can to get them excited about their heritage. The style Martinez plays is known as paranda. It developed soon after the Garifuna's arrival in Central America. This song, Baba, is one of his own compositions. He has played it on tour to audiences all around the world, and it's one of the most popular Garifuna songs of all time. For Martinez, music is the great communicator, and he knows it can be used to save this culture.
You need to allow it to reach to your soul. That is how you can bring out the essence of the culture.
But people like Martinez, who are fighting to keep the culture alive, have a difficult task ahead.
The making of Garifuna drums is an art that is slowly dying in Belize. Mr. Baba Coleman is one of the few drum makers left in Belize. He uses his backyard in Hopkins Village in the Stand Creek district for his drum creations. Despite being an estimated 110 miles away from the old capital, Belize City, many locals and foreigners seek him out to purchase their drums.
People come all the way from Europe looking for me to talk to me, not that they are going to buy drums, but they want to see the person who is making drums here at Hopkins. So it is something that I love. This is something that I love to. I can stay here from morning till night making drums. I don't get tired. I love working here. And drum has helped me since the closure of that port where we used to ship citrus from, because that was my only job. And since the closure of that place, I turned on to do this. I do part-time farming, and this is what gives me money. I used to grow citrus, but what I make here, I have to spend it on the citrus farm. So I said, that's foolishness. So I stopped growing citrus because the cost to maintain a citrus farm is much more than what you are going to get off the farm. So I stopped growing citrus because I cannot pay you taking your family labor to go on the citrus farm, and you cannot pay your family off the citrus farm. So I stopped doing that farming. So I do just part-time farming now. Go cut a little milpa, plant what I eat.
Producing the drums may not give Baba Coleman a luxurious life, but it is a way of living, one that the younger generation has shown little interest in learning.
Nobody wants to come and sit down and learn to make drum.
So you're the only one here in Hopkins who does this?
Yeah, I'm the only drum maker in Hopkins.
And you've been doing this for how many years?
For over almost 30 years now, or more. I started making drums when Peace Corps began to come into Belize, and they came to Hopkins for cultural nights, and I used to have cultural nights, but I have to rent people drum. So I said, I must get own drum. So I made the first pair of my own drums, and it was perfect. So since that time I make drums and I sell drums. I cannot stay without drums. Like any other business, sometimes business is right, sometimes it's not. For the year I'm supposed to sell about, say about 75 drums. You know, all sizes, but mostly small drums. Mostly 85% small drums, because people travel and they do not want to carry on them weight. So they buy a small drum and they are on their way.
When we visited Coleman, we met a couple from Alaska who were there to purchase a drum of their own.
I live in Oregon now, but I still carry on the traditions. And so when I came here, I knew that there was someone that, Hopkins, they have drums, and I was told that this is where they play drums. And I just, when you hear the drums, it brings spirits to you. If you listen to them and you listen, and they come. And so my destination, I ended up here, and I can't believe this. It's like, just the Holy Spirit working again, and just get to meet him, and you guys are here. I can't answer that. It's just a miracle.
A small drum runs about $50 and takes about 2 hours to produce.
Oh, yatina amana mulena ayano yatina amana mulena debele geno me wawa laubala banga lauba ge banda ge bekna ma laubala banga ai lauba ge banda ge bangna ma laubala banga hawa go namula no nare tamwa hawa go nidanwa nare tamwa debele geno me wawa laubala banga ye lauba ge banda ge bangna ma laubala banga ai lauba ge banda ge bekna laubala banga Nate nogoya mer moya dena mama nogoya mer moya dena palaba denaro tora nika banane lao nora bule ada ya familio palaba denaro tora nika banane lao nora bule ada ya familio ayano ayatena amana mulena ayano ayatena amana mulena
Garifuna food, our favorite foods and the foods that our ancestors ate. So I think it's perfect timing for this video. The first one we're going to talk about is the most popular dish, which is called hudud, also known as machuca. And this is a seafood soup made in a rich, delicious coconut milk broth. So the coconut milk broth is made most of the time naturally from, grated coconut, and we add our own spices to the soup. A simple machuca or hudud will be just with fish, but if you want to add shrimp, lobster, conch, king crab, it's just more deliciousness. Now, what accompanies this soup is mashed plantains made into a ball, right? So the way we get this is we boil green plantains and ripe plantains, and then we put it inside of a mortar and pestle, which we call a hana in Hanodua. And so we mash the plantains together to come together as a ball, and then inside of the bowl of the soup you put your whatever portion of mashed plantain that you want. Some people like the mashed plantain on the side of their soup. I prefer mine inside of the soup because it soaks up all of the flavor from the soup, right? And then you enjoy it. Now traditionally machuca is eaten with your hand, so you take the ball of the machuca of the plantains and you dip it in the soup, and you with your piece of fish, and you drink the soup inside of the bowl. And that is hudud, aka machuca. Next we have tapo. So tapo is a fish stew made out of coconut milk. Again, coconut milk broth is the base of it, and we add our own seasonings. We add the fish inside of the tapo, and what accompanies the stew is different types of bread kind. So you have yam, you have ripe plantain, green banana, some people put malanga, yuca, dumpling also goes into it. So whatever type of bread kind that you want to add in the soup, and that's what we call tapo. Next we have darasa. So darasa is a green banana tamale, or tamale, however you call it. And the way we make this is we peel green banana and we grate it. And once we grate it, we're gonna have this bowl of grated green banana. So we take it and we spoon it on top of a banana leaf, and then we just wrap it with the banana leaf, tie it, and put it in water to boil. Once it hardens or molds together, we take it out, cool it off, and we enjoy it. You can add it with a piece of fried fish, you can add it with your stewed chicken, or you can enjoy darasa alone. And that's how we eat darasa. Next we have dugunu. So dugunu is also a stew in a coconut milk broth. We eat a lot of coconut, okay? The broth is seasoned to your liking, and then you add your fish inside of that broth. But what accompanies the dugunu is meatballs of grated green banana, if you can get that visual. So the green banana is peeled, then it is grated. It's seasoned, salt, pepper, or whatever you want to your liking. And then we take spoons of it and kind of like put it into a ball. We throw it inside of this coconut milk broth and it starts to boil. So as it boils, the balls of grated banana become hardened. And that's what you eat, that's what accompanies the dugunu. So you have your fish, and then you take out the balls of grated green banana to accompany it. And that's how you eat dugunu. Last but not least, we have hiyu. Hiyu is not a food, it's actually a drink. Hiyu is made from the leftover cassava flour. So there's a process when making cassava bread where we sift the yuca that has been dried on top of the hibise, our handmade sifter, and all of the flour, it falls out on the bottom of the sifter. But there are bigger chunks of the yuca flour that stay on top of the sifter. So we get those bigger chunks of yuca flour that weren't sifted, and we put it inside of a bowl or a bottle, and we add water, we add suguru, and we also add ginger, and we leave it there to ferment. So after about a week, we sift that liquid to take out just the liquid, and that's the drink that we call hiyu.
Garifuna. The Garifuna language is an Arawak language spoken in Honduras, Belize, Guatemala, and Nicaragua by the Garifuna people, also known as the Black Caribs. This language is primarily derived from Arawak and Carib, with English, French, and Spanish to lesser degree. One interesting feature of Garifuna is a vocabulary split between terms used by only men and other terms used only by the women. This does not, however, affect the entire vocabulary, but when it does, the terms used by men generally come from Carib, and the terms used mostly by women come from Arawak. Almost all Garifuna are bilingual and also polylingual, speaking the official languages of their countries they inhabit, such as Spanish, Creole, and English, most commonly as a first language. The Garifuna alphabet, which we say Lubunya Dimurei Garifunu, which is the Garifuna alphabet. Now, I'm going to say the whole alphabet straight through without saying it in English. Alright, start from A and I'm going to go to Y. Garunati, Ba, Cha, Da, Gayumati, Fa, Ga, Ha, Gagiriti, Ka, La, Ma, Na, Nya, Gararati, Pa, Ra, Sa, Ta, Maguti, Gaguti, Wa, Ya. That concludes the Garifuna alphabet.
adatila go banadriye. Oh Marie namgo, dibilwa namgo, ye banadriye ne de mama, adatila go banadriye. Nobody there, neighbor, Ratune, Adatila go, oh, Marie, number Zibilwa, number, even a lady is a mama, Adatila go, Ruba passeino, yede namuga to ago banadriye. Be namuga ni de chamama, ada kila go banadriye. Mari ye namuga, di bilwa namuga, ibana lay ni de mama, ada kila go banadriye. No funny, neighbor, I wouldn't know. I didn't feel a go when I did. They ain't nobody there, neighbor, I like to me. I got feel a good banana. Not Marie, now. Bilwa namgo, yeba nada lene de mama, ada tila go banana.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see in this channel, please subscribe and click on the notification bell so that anytime we upload a new video, you will get notified.